there's always this desire that India is a growing economy at a time when the West are not doing too well, so let's cash in. But even at these rates of 6, 7, 8, good times, 9% growth, we're an economy which has very poor per capita income. We yet have huge number of people that are homeless, powerless, don't even have food. That segment continues to demand a lot of the attention from the budget. What do you expect will happen there, and could the FM really deliver there?
Well, I think hunger is the biggest challenge that India faces in the social sector. We all know the statistic that 45% of our children below the age of 5 suffer from undernourishment. And I think that needs to be addressed, and for that food security is very important. I would expect him to fund the food security bill much more and go ahead with that. It may cost 30,000 crores. But I expect him to cut subsidies in some other areas, particularly fuel. There's no reason why diesel should be subsidized. I don't see why they should collect taxes on diesel and petrol and give it money back as subsidy to oil companies. He can as well reduce the taxes and say that, look, I'm reducing the taxes, increase the price, and let's do away with subsidy on diesel and petrol, and possibly reduce the subsidy on kerosene. And I would expect him to fund food security more rather than give subsidies on fuel.
Mr. Nanda, how does that sound to you? A food security bill that's really I would say the poster bill of the UPA at the moment. Will the FM be under pressure to push that, and what impact could it have?
See, look, I agree with Mohan. I think we cannot have 65 years after independence children going to bed without a full day's meal. But instead of giving people spoon feeding them, I think we should find ways to create jobs. And the problem is that once you introduce anything like this, it is very difficult to take it back. So if I was the finance minister, I'd find more innovative way of feeding the poor than just giving out doles. Because Narega experience has not, it was a well-meaning initiative, but the experience is that now the people who are coming to work as unskilled labor, say I get 100 rupees a day sitting at home, and on top of the 100 rupees you give him X kilos of rice. So what is his incentive to come to work? And on top of that, it adds to inflation, something that the FM really doesn't want on his table. Vikram, just get a sense from you then on this subject. When you look at what's happening in the economy today, that there's a desire to have a demographic dividend, a large number of people that are coming into the pool, 50 million, under 25, raring to go kind of population, but no skill, not enough jobs, certainly not enough access to education. Is the budget not doing enough for it, or is it the execution issue?
Well, firstly, I think the problem you've identified is an extremely critical one. We need to train our young, and we need to find them jobs. Otherwise, there's going to be a huge mismatch between aspirations and the reality and economic reality. And that is definitely going to lead to social turmoil. So the budget has to spend a lot of money, allocate a lot of resources for vocational training. That, I think, is definitely got to be a priority. Now, is it doing enough? In the past, it has allocated, I think, sufficient funds, but those funds are not being dispersed efficiently. And that, of course, is one of the key constraints within our economy. We have the money, we have the skills sometimes, but we just don't know how to distribute it efficiently. And so that's not a budgetary issue, that's more of a structural issue. But clearly, the budget, again, we go back to, we've got to release the resources from somewhere to allocate them to priority sectors whereby we generate more jobs, we create more skills, or we train people for doing the jobs that are being created, and we reduce wasteful expenditure.
As I wrap this up, Mr. Nanda, my question to you would be, do we always set up bigger expectations of the budget than it really can give us in terms of real execution on the ground?
I think budget is overhyped. Business really doesn't bother, doesn't care so much about this budget as it used to do 20 years ago. The only need I have is simplify things, manage your fiscal deficit, and improve what you're doing right. You talk of the skill development. We need to just improve. There are institutions and there's a lot being done. I think we need to make things more efficient. We need better teachers. So the education system, if I was to ask for one area of reform, I would ask for education reform.
But could the government turn around and say, what could corporate India do there?
Lots being done. a lot of people are doing it at a personal level, a lot of people are doing it at a corporate level, the National Skill Development Council. Mahindra Group supports Pride Schools where we have, it's part of our affirmative action program. We take up kids and train them and 100% of them get employed.
The government needs to keep a watch on the execution side of its own funds. Okay, Mr. Pai, are we overhyping the budget story, or really we shouldn't be expecting much out of it right now because of the election scenario and that there are only 12 more months to go?
Well, I would expect him to make things much simpler overall. And I don't have great expectations from this budget because the flexibility for the finance minister is very little. Like I said earlier, the fiscal deficit is going out of control, spending is going out of control, there's a limitation to the quantum of tax that he can take from people, and overall I think his flexibility is very limited. He may do some small things, but I would appreciate if he focused on fiscal consolidation, he reduced the fiscal deficit and reduces borrowing. Because today, he's borrowing 4,50,000 crores every year. And the interest payment on that is getting to be so high that there's almost going to be no flexibility, where we are in danger of entering into a debt trap. So I think we should be reasonable in the expectation of the budget and just say, go in for fiscal consolidation, reduce spending, and have targeted spending. And they should be happy with that.
Right, we should be happy for once. I think India Inc. is saying, let's have the greater common good done. We want the fisc to be under control. Thanks very much, gentlemen. Appreciate Mr. Nanda. Thank you very much. Vikram, Pramod, and Mr. Pai, thank you very much for being on the agenda for renewal. Well, as always, the task is set for the FM. It's only if he'll bite the bullet, or shall I say, will he get the right papers out of that briefcase. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay with ET Now.